Welcome back to the Cognition School Podcast. It's been a while, so I apologize. I know that we all get swamped and busy, and it's hard to keep these things on a frequent basis, but we're back. In fact, I think this is my first podcast that I'm doing out of this facility, which is good and bad because I've been here for a year already in this space, but it's great. Obviously, a lot of people have been asking about what we do here, and but this is more about being able to educate you and the audience. And obviously, we have a plethora of different people here that listen to this podcast, both from an athlete perspective, but also for the parents as well as the coaches. So we call this Cognition School because it has everything to do with the brain. That's all we do here at the Cognitive Performance Institute, which is this facility here. Yeah, today we have a very special guest and someone that really also specializes on the mental and the brain aspect of it as well. Larissa and I have always been following each other on LinkedIn, and we had a really good opportunity to discuss in person recently. And I'm really glad to have her on here because I think this is another area that we can all really focus on. It is becoming a very hot topic, and I'm sure you'll allude to that as well. Welcome to the show, and
I am so stoked. I like the name of this podcast too.
Yeah, this is something that we thought about long and hard, and this is what we came up with.
That's what your brain brained. Remember how we were?
Yeah.
That's what we always say. That's what our brain was braining, right?
That's right, braining.
Right.
That's right.
Braining. We use it as an actual verb. We don't know if it actually exists, but we call it. Our athletes are like, my brain was braining all the time. I'm like, good.
That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
So Larissa, obviously we kind of know what we do here and yourself. Tell us a little bit about what you do and kind of do an introduction of what you're doing day to day.
Well, day to day, we help equip athletes with mental skills like resilience, coping skills. We help them balance their phones so they stay on phone routines. And then we educate them about how social media is affecting the brain chemistry, but also their nervous system. Basically, if you were to have your first game in the morning and then go home and go on social media for 2 or 3 hours, it kind of makes your brain feel and your body feel like you just ran a marathon because the surge in dopamine and cortisol spikes so high, and your brain is trying, and your hormones literally are trying to fight to stay high with the high heart rate, and your nervous system is getting really ticked off. So we help you to tone that all down and balance the social media out. So you're still going to use social media. It's just, when are you going to use it? Why are you using it? Why do you have this many apps? So we help the athletes with that daily, but we also help coaches. We train coaches to understand how an athlete can go from yellow to green on their traffic light, and how they can go from red to green in the traffic light. And we're seeing coaches coming in here. We do executive coaching and training. I'm shocked. They're in such pressure cookers, as you know, right? Pressure from above and below and from the sides. Like they don't get out of this thing. So, and they find that the phones are really revving them up, and we help them just get into a phone routine as well. And then we also educate parents on how to help their athletes at home, because there's about 10 strategies that your kids, if they aren't doing today in a digital phone age, they will be behind in a couple of years.
Yeah, and I can appreciate that too, right? We're both parents and have kids, and we've struggled, and we didn't grow up with this stuff.
No, we
right?
didn't.
For us, when we first started using mobile devices, it was just a clamshell phone, and you called somebody. There was no apps, and even the camera was really bad.
Anyway. Or gambling on it, right? Like none.
Nothing.
It was just
nothing.
Phone.
Yeah. So we didn't get taught on how to manage that either. And besides the fact that it was more of a business tool for us, right? Like getting our emails and texting wasn't even really a thing at that point. It was more emails, right?
Right.
So
I think email, primarily texting, and then I think the game changer was 2007 when iPhone was introduced. That's when I saw our athletes. I was coaching elite volleyball, and I just started to see the athletes going to their phones during water breaks. I was like, what? Whoa, come back over here. Like, you haven't done your proper cool down. We haven't gone through our proper post-game summary. and you're running to your phones. So we quickly at our club put in significant protocols. There is no phones coming in anymore in some clubs. They don't want them. They don't want them around. They want to teach them how to prepare for their games, like mentally with visualization and getting in the game, because you can't just go from Instagram and TikTok to your mental space. It actually takes you 20 minutes to really hone in on your focus in your brain. You know that, and I know that.
Right.
Kids don't understand that.
Yeah.
So it takes you quite a bit of prepping. And the other thing is that I think you and I touched on the other day was focus stamina. If your game is like, say, 90 minutes, your focus stamina has to be at least 2 hours without a phone. So you can't have those urges to be on your phone during that time, or else you're going to be basically under your performance by probably 25. What we're finding is 25, 30%.
Do you think people are, in a very generic term, like, are people addicted to their phones at this point? Or
over 90% of the kids coming here, doesn't matter, student athletes, because we go into schools to teach our programs in different leadership situations. And then we also go into high-level sport, professional, Olympic or junior, right? And it's all sport. Doesn't matter which sports. We have more of our data and collection within more hockey that's where our space is. And we see a distinct change in their brains when we take them down on the tapering method down, right? Every week they go down an hour on their phone, and guess what? All of a sudden now the team is winning more. All of a sudden now they're all happier. Now all of a sudden they're actually engaging, communicating. It's amazing. And the phones that actually have had banned phones in schools, more kids are coming out for sports again. More kids are actually signing up for clubs. The kids are delightful to talk to. like just going back to when I went to school, everyone pretty much mostly got along, right? And the teachers cared. Now I found that my kids say, well, we'll just go on our phones. Our teacher doesn't care, and it's kind of an interesting comment, because that makes me feel like, well, I was at the back of the class, man. Eric Lindros was in one of my classes, and there were like these National Geographic magazines at the back. He'd be like the first boy to the back of the class for those magazines.
Those are fun magazines, I remember.
Right? And you would see everything in them. And then there would be comic books, and they would fight to get back to those. You had everything, but you were doing something else with your brain that was useful, not delaying your brain, which we seem to see phones, and psychiatrists are saying, I'm scared. They're saying we're delayed by 2 or 3 years now in terms of our psychology, emotional, and cognitive development.
What do you think is the root cause of people not being able to put down their phones?
The dopamine, the addiction point.
So now we're talking chemical.
We're talking balance. It's just chemical. Like if we had social media taken off our phones, we'd be fine. And it's in the layers of high risk. So in terms of like gambling, TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, or pornography or something like that, what's the highest dopamine hit you can get? And that's where we go. And then there's also this new thing called fear of missing out. I mean, there was one kid on a team this weekend who threw a fit at the arena. His mom and dad were like, I'm sorry, you were really rude to the ref. You're not getting your phone. And the kid threw a tizzy, right? But it was his brain going, oh, I don't get dopamine? And I want dopamine. It's a real thing. So we see it all the time. People are afraid to go anywhere without their phone, and they're tethered to it. And we train kids to be untethered and find more hobbies and put down the phone more and be okay with that, right? Because it's not sustainable. This isn't sustainable.
What do you think that they're missing out on?
Engagement, socialization, communication, building their language skills, they don't know how to make friends anymore.
What's like the average amount of hours that you find through your athletes that they're on for?
So the athletes that come through our door are any age between 10 to 30, roughly. And of those under 18, we'll see anywhere from 4 to 9 hours a day, some 12. I don't know how they do that. Professional athletes, which really concern me, still sustain 8 hours a day. How are you performing well, feeling well, and taking care of your body, your diet? Even after you've taken care of your body, you're doing your physio, or you're doing your rolling, and you're doing your weights, you're going to practice, you're studying your film, and you got to eat in there, right? And you got to have your team meeting. I don't even know where they're fitting in 8 hours. So what we're finding is predominantly they're on their phones after 9, 10, 11. They're staying up past midnight, right? That's that point in the brain that you and I know they need their 2 rapid eye movements of sleep and the cycles of the brain that clean. And that cleaning of the brain is really important. And the silence is just killing the kids, literally. Depression. Because if they're using their phones between 9 and 12 p.m., those kids are at very high risk for depression and suicide. The social media itself, I'm finding, is destroying their sense of self-esteem. So just as that tanks, performance and decision making just go way down. It's right. It's
right.
It's a cycle. It's a vicious one too. At that,
there is a value to mobile devices, right?
Absolutely.
Like there is value to the apps sometimes, right? Like so. If you didn't know how to fix your computer, you go to YouTube or you happen to see something on TikTok about, hey, if you did this, then your life will change, whatever, right? Like, so there is an inherent value, but how do you draw that line?
What we do with the athletes, primarily under the age of 18, is we see them having too many apps on their phone. So the more apps you have, the more likely you're to be on your phone longer, right? I'm finding that our NCAA and our OHL or AHL and NHL athletes, even our MLS or NBA, they're on it for such a consistent amount of time, like big chunks, right? And then there's the random use. So what we do is we help them by reducing duplicates or very similar apps. So do you need TikTok and Instagram? Because guess what? Instagram shows the same videos as TikTok on their reels. So why don't you delete TikTok? And then they usually do, right? We help them by putting control apps. So you only get TikTok for 30 minutes a day. That's it.
Oh, so you do use like a third-party app to
manage
that?
Well, they have to find one that their provider has, because all of them have different kind of plans and phones and things, right? Yeah. So we just find them something. Or can you do it yourself? But an undeveloped brain, even look at adults, they can't do it. The frontal lobe just, can't make those decisions. The surge of dopamine and the feeling of escapism, it's so easy, right? And parents are like, yeah, go on your phone. It's so much better. Meanwhile, what kind of is terrifying me and a bunch of other psychologists and pediatricians, Canadian, American, Australian, and British, are that we used to be outside 6 hours a day from the age of 6 hours a day. Now we're literally inside, only watching videos, not engaging, not playing. We're isolated. And we're just sitting there not developing our skeletal muscles, our bones and tendons, and we don't have any endurance. That's a dangerous thing. That's 42 hours a week of being sedentary. So we're really seeing the delays and the increase in injuries as well.
Do you think it's also because, especially with the younger kids as well, that they may not necessarily understand the concept of time even?
Their time distortion is way off, right? Like, oh, it's dark outside. Oh, it's 10 o'clock and I'm 4 years old. Parents aren't putting their kids to bed anymore. They're like falling asleep wherever they are with an iPad or not getting the connection. The biggest detriment to kids right now is not being able to connect with their parents.
It's like those restaurants that we go to and you see the one, young kid on the high chair at the restaurant, and
oh God,
they have is the iPad, right?
Yeah, it makes me.
I know you've got opinions about that. So.
Like, you're there to connect, and in Europe, actually, when we travel, and we were in Portugal and France, I saw much less use of phones in French and Portuguese families than I did in the Canadian or American families. They were not out at phones at the dinner tables anywhere.
I remember growing up, and you had to be home by dark. That was always the rule, right?
Oh, yeah. Like my mom would ring a cowbell, and very. Like it was a very nice neighborhood, beautiful, but there was no phones unless she phoned someone's house, but she didn't know where we were. We all just played, and we all actually had more accountability and responsibility then. And parenting was much, much different. It withheld with discipline, boundaries, consequences, rules, and a value system. The combination that we're seeing is not as much discipline and accountability, added on with the lack of mental skills and resilience not being taught in the homes anymore. And then on top of that, they're on their phones 18,000 hours by 16, which is detrimental to their complete academic and language development, even cognitive and psychological development. In fact, many kids say they don't know how to make friends anymore. They're too afraid to be judged. They're actually afraid. And this goes to the point where we're working with NCAA teams. And when surveyed, the athletes are saying, well, I don't want to be captain because I don't want that stress and I don't want that responsibility and I don't know how to communicate. But really it is they don't have coping skills. So instead of all this time on a device, we need kids to develop more. And that's why society's kind of, not happy right now in schools or sports. Or I just saw a 10-year-old flip off a ref at a game. I'm like, why? Like, I would never do that to a ref. So what they can say online is transferring to real life because there's no accountability online.
I know it's still a little bit early to tell, right? Because this is still generational. Like, we still have to wait until they become, working adults, let's say, right? Like they've, yeah, that they've gone by, that whole athletic phase and now they're working. So, I mean, it's still early again, but is there anything that you know of that kind of correlates to how they perform outside of even athletics?
We're seeing some markers. So one is confidence, definitely. The other one we're seeing is work ethic. If they can put the work into their sport, it'll directly translate to anything else they do. And self-esteem. Confidence is different than self-esteem. Knowing who you are, knowing what makes you, self-identity. And this is really important for many athletes to learn that there's more to them than just being a hockey player. In fact, the more an athlete has something outside of their sport, the more likely they are to stay in their sport at a high level. So we help them figure out who they are, what their strengths are. And we just talk to them about what this process looks like. And they come in with no confidence and they leave feeling like, well, sassy. I'm like, okay, that's good. That's where I want you. Like, you're happy, right? Nothing can penetrate. And we teach them to have a very good filter in terms of what emotions need to enter, what emotions need to leave. How do you deal with emotions? Can you bank this one for later? Do you have to deal with this one now? And that's where their brain has just not been, they're just typically watching videos. So their brain's just kind of, and their language is not working. And you and I both know that the linguistic part of the brain is not working at all right now in kids under 15, 16. It's just constant video watching. Like Dr. John Hutton's work in Cleveland Hospital in Cincinnati is outstanding. Following his work has been really interesting. That's why I think it's so important to just talk more to your kids. And there's 10 strategies we teach parents to use at home and athletes to start off right away to change it.
Yep.
Because the change is absolutely day and night. Like within 48 hours, the kids are already happier, calling me and saying, oh my gosh, like I have more energy. Like I feel like not so foggy brained. And this is when you and I were talking, remember, about the screen time before you come to play or do your testing or whatnot. So that was really interesting. But if you're on your device before you come in for testing, your dopamine would be super, super high and your cognitive decision making would probably be down.
Anything that you do, anything really. I mean, there is cognitive load, regardless of whether you're even if you're just sitting there,
definitely,
scrolling through, right? I mean, I was talking about this specific topic the other day. It's like, are we kind of running into more of a scrolling, swiping generation where nothing interests them anymore?
Nothing interests them. They're not curious about anything. They're not willing to be outside in nature. They just want to be in front of this thing. And this is a dangerous part of where we are in education. We work a lot with schools. I think I shared that with you. And we take a lot of our programs, curriculum into their curriculum for social emotional literacy or into like their sports leadership programs and things like that. And I'm blown away by what parents are allowing at home. Totally blows my mind what parents allow in their own home to be used with phones. We're very strict right now with our phone use. Like you have kids, but when their brain reaches another level, you're like, okay, what's this phase going to be like? What can we allow them to use? And what can their brain do? And what are they capable of? So as soon as my daughter's out, she's 20, and she's been great on her phone for the majority of the time because we kept checking, right? Make sure she's not being bullied. And that's what I actually make sure there's nothing illegal going on.
Right.
But if I didn't check, I don't know how that would really work.
Obviously, this isn't, there's no clear answer to this, but like what's an appropriate age to give out a mobile device, in your opinion?
I'm asked that a lot, and I still say, when can we trust that the brain will do the right thing and won't be addicted to dopamine? I don't know. Older is definitely better. I say grade 9. I say phones are fine, but don't put social media on them. If you had a phone, I'm kind of like, well, what's on it? And the one mom was telling me, we work with a phone company called TrueMe. It's a very, very controlled phone. Parent can only put the child's friends in and the apps in. It's America. We can't get it here in Canada. And I'm friends with the CEO and I'm begging him to bring it here because they would be for my kids. And I would put like all the teams would get it. I'd literally hand them a phone because it's safer than any iPhone out there. Making sure that we know what our kids are on is definitely something, and how long they've been on what for. We've made mistakes with our kids. We've learned what doesn't work and what works. But definitely our athletes, there's no phones in their rooms at night. That's the biggest change. No phones in your room, because then the dopamine kicks in and then you're wide awake and you can't get to sleep. And then you feel like absolute poop about yourself, because on social media, they go in there and you know as well as I do, they see and compare themselves. I'm not fast enough. I'm not that strong enough. I'm not ripped enough. I'm not handsome enough. Why can't I get sponsorships? Soon as we go down that rabbit hole of reflection, then confidence, self-esteem, decision-making, and performance absolutely are in the gutter.
To that point, it can also help you to a point as well to know, oh, hey, my competition is doing this type of stuff, and I'm not quite there yet, right? There is some good in it, I would say. But again, it's like, where do you draw that fine line? Because
make your social media make you happy. If there's something on there, who are you following and who's following you? Make sure that person that you're seeing and you're following is giving you good energy. If that person is taking your energy, delete them. Because if you're working with an excellent team of people around you, they're going to help you with the best training possible. And you have the internet, not just social media, to look up things. So, you can find things that way. But I've been finding that the biggest change our athletes feel, and the parents applaud me for, is getting the phones out of the bedroom, right? Mm-hmm. And they stay on the main floor forever. That's it. They don't leave. And so, you know what? You can't take inappropriate photos or do inappropriate things if phones stay on the main floor.
That's a simple one that anyone
It's simple. It cuts everything out. And it's kind of funny because parents will call me, well, what if my son Johnny has his sleepover and all of them are upstairs in their room? I'm like, there's a phone basket. Here you go, guys. We don't have rules in our house. We have rules in our house. And you know what? But the phone basket out. You can come down and check it anytime you want. And then there's lots of different tricks that you can use. But parents are tethered to their child, to the phone, which makes it even worse, right? So we're not in Europe. You're on your own. Earlier, they raise much more resilient kids in Europe, and in Finland and hockey in Sweden. We've been working with some of the hockey players, and they grow up and go to academies. Right, by 13, they're gone. They're doing laundry, cooking, doing all their own things as a billet, and they're very focused, but they're very confident because they've spent more time with family. They're doing something different, and they're doing something more right than we are. We have to examine that.
Again, I think for parents, it's either, you give it to them or you take it away, and there's just like nothing in between, right? I don't think we as parents really quite understand it. I feel for everybody that's kind of struggling with that because...
And imagine coaches, different weekends. So in the coaching side of it, so we have classes and courses through the the Coaching Association of Canada or the Ontario Coaching Association, and we have more coaches that email us now than ever before. How do I stop them from being on their phones during hockey dinners at the tournaments? Well, it's called a box. If you're all at dinner, they don't fear missing out on anything. They have to sit and talk like they normally would have 20 years ago. And Wayne Gretzky actually said one thing about this last week, and I want to find the footage, is he's like, put those things down in your hands, boys, and talk, because those are the friends for life. And he goes, you're missing out. He goes, you're missing out on each other. Instead, you're playing TikTok or a game. And you're not getting team cohesion, which Dr. Dan Abrahams is really fantastic at teaching. Team cohesion, team harmony by knowing each other, which was interesting. So when the coaches get a bag and they put the phones in there for the team dinners and they say lights out in your rooms at 9:30, that means lights out at 9:30, not lights out on your phones.
Yeah, I've heard stories, and this is from my own personal experience, from somebody very close to me. I know they had the box, but guess what? They also had another one.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So kind of hidden somewhere else, and then they give that one back and they still continue on.
Yeah. There's so many tricks and just protocols and procedures. Like, are we letting phones go in the dressing room? Well, one of the reasons why we saw Hockey Canada change the dressing room code is for the phone reason. One, we'll take the phones. The phones really have no place in sports. If you're going in to work out, warm up, and mentally prepare, and you're really focused on this sport and you want true engagement, phones are the number one distraction of all of that. And when 13 years old, if 70% of our athletes are leaving their sport globally, we're in trouble. It should be doubling with our population rate, right? Yeah. And then at 16, it's 33% more are quitting, which terrifies me. You just hope all these parents I love it. They're all like, their kids are 10 years old, they're playing hockey, and I'm like, their kids they think they're going to the NHL. I'm like, your kid's lucky if they stay until 16. I'm like, right? Because that's a lot to stay in hockey from 4 till 10 is a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. And then another 6, especially at a AAA burnout level, that's when they quit.
To this day, anytime we're training here, I mean, there's definitely no phones allowed in this particular area, and
awesome,
and because there's no business transactions that's that urgent that requires them to be on it anyway. There are cases where I have pro athletes in here, they're waiting for a contract, and
that's
okay, right? So case by case, but I think for the most part, it's something that you could absolutely leave at home. There's no need for that, and I think that's also part of the training, right? That you learn to, keep it at a distance, and it's always going to be there. It's not going to go away. You're not going to miss out on anything in the next 90 minutes.
And you're going to see the same social media comments forever.
Right.
They're not going to go away. And you're going to see notifications. That's one thing we do too in our program is we help them to take a lot of notifications off, because it's pinging that's constantly drawing them to the phone. Even our professional athletes or NIL athletes, and they want to work on their social media, but they don't want to be on their phone. We set them up with laptops that are silent. Phone has been shut off to do not disturb. You can do all of your social media here professionally on your laptop. You can work and put yourself in work mode. Then when you want some time to go and just scroll, put it down for 20 minutes. That's about all you need to do is check social media is 20 minutes a day. It's all the same stuff after 30 scrolls, right?
Right.
And if you have a message, like I have some athletes who are wanting to get to fans and they want to get to, answer questions from people, and it's part of their brand, right? Then work on your laptop, phones go away, and set up your work mode to be work mode.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I've got an Apple Watch on, and I even take that off when I'm working, because it's just constantly buzzing.
I gave mine away to my brother. I was like, I can't. My brain, and I had a hard time refocusing, right? So I had to take it off because it was just pinging, and I was like, I can't deal with it. I like to sit with it and go, okay, social media time. All right, here we go. And I go write down everything, and I go through it, and I'm very thorough. And you know what? Social media time done. Now I got to drive my kid to sports, or I got to drive the other kid, or now I'm going to go see a kid at a rink. Seems like I'm always at a rink. And then if you organize it, we really shouldn't be on social media. And I would hate to see a society that just wants to exist there. Like, you're looking at pictures of the Grand Canyon. Why don't you go, right? Go experience. And we have athletes that push themselves. And I said, what are you doing that other athletes are not? And a list, I reduce my social media. I have a phone routine. I have a homework routine. We're very adamant that they get over 75% average at our academy. They feel more prepared in a routine, right? They're present instead of looking at outcome all the time. Mm-hmm. Right? You will not meet, the mental performance language. If you focus on outcome, you'll be burnt out faster. You'll have performance anxiety faster. Instead of when we focus on being present in the shift, you're on the ice, be there, watch everything. And then you'll actually be reinvesting that energy and that focus into you instead of being distracted by what you just saw or what you did, what you're worried about seeing, right?
For the parents, of course, what do you recommend that they can do, like right away? I mean,
away, our hit list, we have a 10 strategy hit list for parents. So number one thing is put an alarm clock back in their room. I got one, I'll send one to your house. I bought like 100 for my athletes. I'm like, no excuses. What's your address? I'll mail it, an hour before bed, charge your brain and your nervous system down off your phone. And then we set the kids up on mental skills, right? Imagery, their gratitude, but they're also their self-worth list, right? So they have to do all their training before bed. And then I don't care, parents, but get them a book, word search, crossword search, anything that is with a pen, because a pen to paper, it helps the nervous system and the dopamine calm down. Try to stay away, no audio, unless it's a book on like an iPad that has no social media attached to it, because they'll just go to social media. Those are some of the tips, and help them and keep them on a phone routine. That's our job. And connect with them, tell them that you love watching them play, help them with their self-talk, help them with their ability to stop negative talk. Ask them how they feel more instead of telling them, and ask them questions about their game. The car ride home should be the safest place for a kid. We call it the pump up car. That was a great pass you had to so-and-so. That was good. And if they've lost, you use judgment, because they're probably really mad themselves. They're already mad at themselves. So, that was a tough loss today. You guys put in such great effort. I was still impressed with the performance. Like, there's things you can say, right? Like, that bring them out of there, right? But we're there as a landing mat, support, cheerleader. We're not coaching against the coaches. We're there to help with the phone routines at home and help them with their other parts of their routine, help them with their schoolwork. I know a lot of parents who are letting their kids' academics slip. Really important in today's age, where paper is not coming home from the schools and people are not checking report cards and things online. You find out your kid's like getting 40 in science, when now you only have 5 weeks to the end of the year to try and pass that class for university. That's not going to happen.
And I think, to your earlier point about, managing phone usage and stuff, like keep it out of the room, I think that's also a message for the parents too. They got to set the tone, right? Like if they're the ones not doing it themselves, then why should the kid do it?
And that's why some coaches that we work with, as well as being they're a role model, and how we greet them when they show up is so important. Our facial expressions, our mood, and everything. And if you're on your phone and they're coming in and they're like, oh, hi, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so, and you're like, yeah, whatever. That puts a dismissive I don't care in their head, which, translates to negative wiring. And then boom, the heart rate goes up. And now they're wondering, oh, is so-and-so mad at me? There's a emotional cycle in looking and being aware of what's going on. If we want our kids to look in the eyes of somebody while we're talking to them, we have to do it at home, right? And I have had this problem. The phones go down. They know I'm like, can you put that away? I want to talk to you. You need eye contact before you. Like, I learned a long time ago, if I need the laundry done, you got to take the dog for a walk, or you're in charge of the dishwasher, or whatever it is, I write it down as well, so you have no discrepancy, or I will text it to them, but mostly I write it down on the kitchen counter so they see it when they're home, and then I say it when they're looking at me so we get contact. Because if they can't take instructions from me, Satoshi, or a coach, they're in trouble.
Right.
You got to be comfortable. You got to be able to discern instructions.
Right. I also think that the more people use mobile devices, like I had my LinkedIn post this morning about doing things different, right? And that's helped me.
Yeah, you had that was so good. And I want to borrow that for my athlete. We've got some animations being in use, but that looks so good.
That was great. Like that came from author of Clear Thinking, which I think it's a really great book too.
Yeah.
What I mentioned in there was be different, meaning if all your teammates are constantly on group chats and no one's talking to each other, and if you want to be the one that stands out to the coach or a general manager
or a scout,
right?
Yeah,
maybe actually call them and talk to them and listen to their intonations, listen to their tone, set the tone when you're talking to them. Right. And you're also now learning negotiation skills that other people aren't accustomed to because they're just using it via text. I always say, hey, the more people do one thing, the more you should probably do the other way, because it'll probably pay off in the long run. Like, why not? Why would you not want to talk to your coach regularly, not just when something's not going well?
Right. And that's such an important topic, which I could probably do a whole other podcast on communication with a coach, but how we interpret feedback, right? So what did I do well today? What I do well, I normally don't. And where do I still need to grow today that my coach is going to tell me? Where do I think I line up with my coach? Because if we're not doing our own self-analysis every day, when we go to talk to our coaches, a lot of kids can't handle what they're saying. Talking to your coach more gives them the notion that you are really engaged and accountable and responsible and driven. Person who's silent in the back, fighting their way through, wondering what the coach is saying, not doing their feedback, you're 10 steps behind the other person. I bet you 6 months in development behind. I just from
I would agree.
What we're examining in development and what we see with the athletes, I would say too that the coaches, that feedback tool, calling them, especially when you're looking at commitments to schools, I'm telling my athletes to call the coach, talk to them, don't go email and text. You can hear inflection, tone. It's more memorable to go to voice than it is to text or email. And they'll remember you first.
Yes.
If called.
Listen, if any athlete is out there and, you know, they want my attention, just call. That is how you get my attention.
Right.
If you want me to help you, or if you want Larissa to help you.
we end up getting quite a lot of messages from our social media. It'll be like Instagram and Facebook and questions and things like that. And that's where I get a lot of questions from very concerned parents, concerned coaches. But the kids, they come through Instagram messages from me.
And I actually don't like it because I have like one general inbox for everything.
Right.
So anytime I mention or tag or message somebody and so on, messages get buried. It's just one
I know
inbox. And then it's like, oh, I forgot to get back to this person because they were buried down there, right? In one day, I'm probably getting, 30, 40 messages a day on Instagram. It's just not the best way to get my time or get my attention.
Right. And your business attention, right?
And the business attention, exactly.
Like the medical side, and you're looking for an actual business inquiry. And then there's going to be inquisitive questions, which I actually implore people to ask. I want kids to ask questions. What will make me better? Is it self-esteem, self-confidence? Can I take your mental skills assessment, Larissa? Absolutely. Let's get you set up. But we have to weed through the messages. There will be like 200 messages between all of our stuff every day. Email is good, but I always leave my number. I said, we prefer calls. And if you want to, like the parents it was so funny. If you want to talk to my kid, she said, I had to download Snapchat.
Right. Exactly.
Right. And we're actually at that point for my middle one, but then the other ones were on a family group chat. So we'll see how this new phase of attempts and strategies works. If not, we'll have to try a new one, but they're not bad at this way. So we'll see how that goes. But again, I'm invested in communicating, right? No, I'm not tracking, worried about them. I'm invested in communicating. I know parents who track and do all that stuff, and you can actually download. There are software systems now you can download to watch what your kids are saying on their phones.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And much of that is due to bullying, unfortunately. If you want to check what's on your kid's phone, just check. You have the right. You own it. So,
which they seem to forget very quickly.
We do, but I have caught numerous predators on my one daughter's phone and on my son's phone. Like, they're always there. They're always trying to get in. And not just that, just hackers, trollers, people trying to get money, like the Bitcoin thing. I don't want him to download something and then get a virus. Like, there's lots of other reasons. So, but the coaching one, to go back to, the other thing I was talking to some athletes, because we have a lot of athletes going D1 this year, and they've been talking to their coaches. But I said, but what did you do between 11 and grade 11 and 12? And they said, well, I just emailed or texted. They said, out of all of the emails they get, which will be 1,500, what makes yours so special? They're kind of like, oh, no, I didn't do right. I'm like, no, you did the right thing. You communicated. But I would love you to call them. And they're floored. Like, some of these coaches are floored again to actually talk to an athlete. But what it does show them is that you're confident, you're sociable, like you're absolutely coachable, and you're accountable for yourself. So calling is the new thing again to be noticed. We're definitely seeing a lot of our kids just went D1 just by calling.
Oh, absolutely. I'm of that exact opinion as well, that even if you had to leave a voicemail.
Oh yeah.
Because that also says how professional you are about it as well.
I loved it. Like, well, they weren't there, I left a voicemail. Great. We even have to coach them. Leave the number. Tell them you're calling, where you're calling from, your name. Say, I've left you an email. This is me. I just thought I'd like to talk to you about your program. I'd really like to learn more. I'm really fascinated, and be really positive in your questions, but short. I haven't seen one coach not call back yet, because they're more invested in swinging this whole thing around, because now they have whole teams looking at what is your social media doing. We've had several athletes get their scholarships wiped out. They're done because they did inappropriate things. So we're pretty invested in helping them have a very professional account that shows them more about them being there for their team, and them being there working hard, them being there with their academics, them being there and showing up as a tough athlete, as a gritty athlete. Did you put in the quote that your whole team fought and you kept fighting, right? That's important. And instead of going, yeah, we won, scores 6-0. I mean, they'll see that. They'll see those numbers. Who cares? Show them how you won the game. What did you do? Explain it. And kids are not very good at the detail and explanations as much. We have a whole list of like 30 posts that you can do for a month, right? Over a 30 posts, like for a few months, and show them you got up at 5:30 to work out. You did your rolling before bed. You're doing your journaling. You're doing your mental skills. You're doing your imagery. How are the scouts going to know all that? Like you can show them on your, right, on the account.
Yeah, right. I also like those individuals that not only do they call, so you had the one-on-one chat and everything was great. They hang up the phone and they actually don't follow up with anything after that. They're good at messaging on the text and emails and so on. Okay, did that. But what they don't do is after they had that face-to-face to say, hey, thanks, coach, for your time today.
Oh, good.
Great, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed talking about X, Y, and Z. Here are the things that I learned from this call. I'm going to work on blah, blah, blah.
Thank you. Second step, saying thank you. I really got a lot out of our conversation. It really helped me to understand more about your program and what I can expect. I just thought it was just this, thanks so much. Just a simple text or email to say thank you. Thank yous actually go a long way now.
So voice calling and thank yous.
And you know what? It seems to be a trend that we're going back to real etiquette.
Yeah. It's like the old is new, right?
The old is new.
You and I are talking about stuff that is totally regular to us. But to be fair to the kids of this new generation, I haven't come across a TikTok account or an Instagram account that says, hey, here's an daily etiquette, account. Maybe that's a new
next
one.
Week. I just did, my consultant was like, well, you need to put this etiquette stuff out for scholarships. And we're also doing some feedback and coaches and why it's important to actually call, because it actually makes that impact. And so now with NIL, it's a mess, right? It's gonna change. So how are you going to get noticed, especially as a Canadian?
And I think it also goes the other way too, meaning if it doesn't go your way, if the coach says, hey, we decide to take on this other kid over here, sorry, we don't have a spot for you, there is still an opportunity for you to send that thank you note and still be top of mind, right? Because if you don't do it,
what if someone gets injured? What if someone gets injured and you're next?
Exactly.
What if someone can't handle their program or is not handling things and they leave? This is happening on one of every 6 teams now. There's actually more movement because that transfer portal, but we're seeing quite a lot of movement, not for the right reasons, but we're seeing more movement, but that could change your life.
Exactly. It happens all the time, right? That someone gets hurt, someone gets, they whatever the reason, they lose it. And then you could potentially have been in that next in line, but you know what? This other person over here who had pretty similar playing styles and had the same level of dedication, they were the ones that followed up, even if that person got rejected at the first time. So, and that also goes for finding a job too. Like if you had your job interview and they chose someone else, I still send an email to them and say, hey, thanks very much for the opportunity. I learned a lot. If something changes, please keep me in mind. That in and of itself is enough that they go, oh, hey, there's that guy, the runner-up, right?
It goes to where I just spoke to, because I was at the USA Canada Cup for women's hockey. I have a few teams in there, and I was talking to some coaches, and I said, so we just talked, and it was nice because we had time without anybody around us, right? For just a little bit, and we're inside, so we could watch the teams from the outside in the coach's box, and they're like, you're the phone lady. I'm like, that's my name. You know what? It's better than being phone Karen, which some of the kids, right?
Yeah.
So they're like, you helped one of our athletes get into Princeton. And I was like, really? Like I knew when they said that, I figured out who it was and said, you know what? We really, really liked the way that she called. She followed up. She came. She didn't have her phone out. She asked good questions. We had a whole list of questions prepared to ask the coach. The scout was telling me that they do have a backup for each position, right? Like you were just saying. And you never know when someone's going to get that bad concussion or the ACL. So there is that reason. The scouts are looking for more than just your stats. They're looking for handshakes, eye contact, professionalism, etiquette. They don't want behavior anymore. They're done. The schools are so burned out. They want well-behaved kids who aren't causing problems on the bench or in the dressing room too.
That's the one thing that when I was 17 years old, I went to see one of my dad's friends who's a fairly high level executive at the time, and I was still playing hockey, and I remember going to see him. He owned a winery down in Niagara as well, and I shook his hand, and the first thing he said is, "I love your firm handshake." I didn't know that, right? I didn't have mentors and, all this coaching stuff back in the day. But I just knew, okay, just shaking a hand is like this. I kind of guessed. And I'm sure if I had like one of those, yeah.
And then there's the firm.
And you know what? There's guys that I know are watching this exact podcast, and exactly the guys that have that fishy handshake. Right, where they take my hand and they're just like just kind of like
even do that
like this, and I know that those exact people. So all they have to do is that, and that kind of shows a lot of things in 2 seconds. So,
2 seconds.
Yeah, it literally is 2 seconds.
That's it.
Yeah. No, I mean we could talk about this for hours. Like
we'll have
this is
part 2. We'll have a complete part 2 on like reflexes or decision making, like get into the brain more, probably how we actually use our programs to rewire that.
Yes.
Right? Like we go through this 8-week program with the kids over 2 months to really see that change.
And that's important too, because, people think that there's like a quick hit, just like Instagram. Like they think it's, if they see one post, their whole life changes, and it does not. Just like our program here and just like your program, it takes, that 2 months, right? That would be about the right time frame. So I would suggest, the parents or players listen to this podcast that prepare, right? Like prepare with enough time so you don't just go and say, oh, okay, I'm going to my training camp next week. I'll call Larissa or I'll call Satoshi. And
so and in something like that, where we can actually make a big difference 4 weeks before your training camp, we can impact it so you'll be at the top of all their lists.
Correct.
We set you with your whole routine for the whole weekend, everything you're doing, so that you feel confident within your preparedness. And then you have the mindset to back everything up. We take actually tournaments and showcases and ID camps as in you're showing. You're not trying. You're showing.
That's right. Yeah.
So it lessens that pressure load in the brain. And as soon as we do that, our athletes are flourishing, because it's as soon as we get them to just see the different perspective of pressure, they're out there going, Larissa, I took all our 20 skills and I showed them 5 on the first day and 6, and now we're empowering them to show their skills. So it's so much better when the kids have the control. And as soon as they control their phones, our testimonies say they can control their minds. And the two are now linked, right? We have to find balance with it.
And I think as parents too, like for the parents that are watching this podcast, most of us probably kind of in this space, either, working, in an organization where they have some type of authority and some experience with running a company, or maybe they're an entrepreneur or have a real estate company or whatever, company you guys run out there as parents. We all have company business plans. We build plans to work backwards from wherever the outcome we want it to be. We're in sales. So, we used to be, here's my $100 million a year target. That means how many calls do I have to do, every day or every month? How many deals do I have to close every month in order to hit my $100 million deal? And I think all the parents on this call need to do the exact same thing for their own kids. Do not leave it for a coach to do that.
No.
Do not leave it for, some skills trainer to do that. I'm sure they can do it.
When they hit 16, it's almost too late.
It's too late.
When they're in a professional situation where now and thanks to a few of our partners like Dallas Eakins, he's like, some of these kids, they need help right now.
It takes time to hatch these things, and so I think parents need to be very aware that this is not something where the more they get trained, they'll be ready. They won't. This is all about the brain. And in our case, where it's for us, all of our training is not about how hard it is on their brain. That's not what we try to do. We try to make it easy for them that they can translate back into their game. So it's not like a personal trainer where where you go to the gym and you lift. Today you lifted 100 pounds. Next week you lift 200 pounds. And the following week after that you lift 400 pounds. That's not what we do. That's not how we train the brain, right? So
I was trying to explain what you did to my youngest, like young. And so I have this, so you tell me if this metaphor is right, okay? So imagine I was explaining how you test it, right? And I use this analogy for neuroplasticity, all right, and memory and decision-making and muscle reps. So imagine we're in a forest and we're walking along a path within the forest. And in that forest, we can see animal paths off the main path. We can see them through there, right? We can go off on them and we can travel on them. But when we stop sending messages in our brains, those deer paths get overgrown and we don't know how to use them anymore. I said to him that the more we have animal paths and the more people and animals use them, the faster your decision making and the faster your options in your head will focus and rep out. Is that right? Like the right analogy that I should be using for younger kids, right? Who don't understand at all. Okay.
Yeah.
For me, like to explain it to, like, he's 12. So
yeah, the more we can simplify everything, the more that they'll absorb it, and then the more they learn. I think, in this space, in the neurocognitive space, there's a lot of scientists, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of papers, there's a lot of scientific jargon, there's a lot of, and more jargon doesn't necessarily mean it's better.
No,
and
hard to really
dumb it down. Yeah, dumb it down so they can explain it to a 5-year-old.
Okay, I just want to make sure, because it was like this, I wanted it to be a repetitive path, or even where you kept like a waterfall over rocks, pouring the water, where does it go, right? It gets faster, it smooths out its own path based on weight. And so we were trying to figure out all these analogies for him. But yeah, that's a good one to use. And it's a good one actually to explain to even, I have 16 and 17-year-old athletes trying to explain what we do with their muscle, or we call it muscle memories in their brain, but they're neural pathways, right? You and I know.
Yeah. So I remember going to my friend's cottage that was in Woodstock, Ontario. Every time I used to drive in his parents' car and we were in the back seat. So it was my friend Keith, who I still remember to this day, is grade 7. Keith would say, "Yep, we're gonna keep watching the traffic going the other way on the 401. We're gonna look for a Ferrari. We're gonna look for a Lamborghini. We're gonna look for a Ford whatever car if we can find it." And so literally, like, him and I, for the 2 hours or whatever it was to get there from Toronto, we would literally be watching every single car that passed us.
So you were
right?
Yeah.
So our car is traveling at 100. Their cars are traveling at 100. So it's a combined velocity of 200 kilometers an hour. And we're picking out what cars was on the other lane going the other way. That was just a game that we just played. We didn't have
no phones, but guess what it did to your brain? Right.
Correct.
It was.
Oh yeah. You can find stuff, like this.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'd go to my son and say, "Hey, did you see that Lamborghini pass by?" He's like, "What? I didn't even see it." Like, how did you see that? And so these are like little games. Like, parents could do this on a road trip all the time, where they go, "Hey, let's see how many cars that you see, or how many license plates."
Yeah. Or we're looking for red SUVs here on the other side. Right? Or something that they have to watch and track that's obvious. Or the license plate game. You see the first name on the license plate, you got to think of a country. Well, when you're driving to Calgary from London, Ontario, that's a long game. Mm-hmm. But we did it like on and off all the way out to Vancouver from London. My dad took us for 2 weeks out and 2 weeks back through the US. And we played games the whole time. We didn't have phones. People are like, "We didn't have them?" I'm like, no, we colored, we watched, we looked, we talked, and by the end of the day, you're tired, right?
Yeah.
We stop and get out for swimming or get out for white walks or hikes or whatever, but we'd be drawing or journaling or writing, and our brains were so much busier in a healthier way. We were exhausted in the right way.
Yeah, it's almost like we should probably create like a little checklist of games that parents can play, on the way to the rink. Or
there's a post for it. I'll get it done. Here's your tournament on the way to a tournament games, because you're in the car for 2-3 hours somewhere, like, right, as if you're in Ontario. And I even have some older like teen games that you can play.
Cool. I mean, we could talk for hours. Like I said, where can people reach out to you? Like, how can they find you?
If people are interested in inquiring, then go fire off to the thementalgameacademy.ca. If you're interested in something for your team or for your athletes or for your coaching staff, we're basically a sports consultant company as well. And we help actually with your parents too. Reach out there. We're right there. And we're on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, everywhere.
They can find you on any platform.
Yeah, which I do not go on. It's on my, I run it off my computer.
Well, Larissa, thank you very much for today. I think this was incredibly informative, and I think we're going to go and do more of these types of things because it's not just about the sport; it's about life in general. And I think that
performance in general
facility, with the performance facility that we've got here, and with your background, I think there's a lot of things that we can start to uncover. So I look forward to working with you.
Yeah,
and thank you so much for being on the Cognition School podcast. Yeah, hopefully we'll see you shortly soon.
Yeah, we got to do podcast number 2.
Yeah, I think that's good. That's on my list now for sure.
There you go. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, appreciate it. Thank you so much.